This is a Global Energy Network podcast.
We're back with Colin Manson for round 2. So we were here last August-ish, so was that 6-7 months, something like that, since we last chat. So at that time, Proteus was raising funds.
Yep.
So you're looking at raising money, offices in Australia, Aberdeen, Dubai. So we'll just kick off there. Where is that? How's that investment one going?
Well, it went really well. Probably because I had nothing to do with it, right? So one of the the co-founder of X-Surgery, the company, albeit Proteus is the product, right? Was James McCallum.
Yeah.
I haven't really spoke much about James, right, last time round. But if you think, actually, you go back to the name, that's an interesting one. Comes from Exodus, and Ergy comes from Synergy, because James was the founder of Synergy, right?
Yeah.
And but we keep the name to the side because Proteus is the kind of core brand that we chase now. But James really drives that fundraising piece, Kenny, right? And he's been brilliant in that place, because one of the things that we realised in the early days is you need a ton of money to get a tech business to the right space. So James drove that raise. Around about that time we were doing it, right, as we talked, and then we closed that just at the start of the year there, right?
Okay.
So that funds are in, and we closed that just under 2.5 million, which was great, right? That was oversubscribed from existing shareholders. I think we brought in one or two new ones, which was more just friends of friends kind of thing, right? We didn't go out to institutions again. It was just existing shareholders, and it was oversubscribed. So very successful, and I guess what that gives you that little bit of fuel, right? It gives you a little bit of fuel in the tank to go and hire some sales guys, right? Sales teams, right? I think we probably touched on this the last time, right? We're at that point where we need to scale the business.
Yeah, so you can get that infrastructure.
Aye. So, but it's funny trying to remember I remember we spoke a lot about Exodus, right? And I had a lot of that feedback of some of the comments I made and all that nonsense, but
Good or bad?
And no, good, right? Good.
Because you've ripped me off and you've went and set up your own podcast.
Well, I did one. Yes, it wasn't so much a rip off. I like the format that there's actually a wee place in Dubai that does it. And you go along, you just
hire the
studio, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to really focus on the, very much on the digital side of things, right? And talk to people, because
other tech companies,
other leaders who are in the tech space, what they think of it. And the guy I spoke to was a guy, Martin Cowie.
Yeah,
it was a guy, right? Martin's he's set up his own company, he's a smashing guy, and he's very techie, right? He's in that space, so it was very easy conversation with Martin in that world of.
we both have an understanding.
He gets it, right? And then I was going to. I haven't done the second one. I was going to do it with Paul McMillan, who is also a mate of mine, but he ran NTS. He was the CEO of NTS, and Paul probably is the opposite of that. Doesn't even know how to work an iPhone, right? And so he'll probably kill me for saying that now.
Try to portray yourself as an IT guy.
No, what you can do is manage his own diary, because he keeps calling off. So he's probably got a paper diary somewhere. And we've began that recruitment process, and we hired the guy in Australia. So we're set up in Australia now. Guy Dennis Marshman has joined us down there, and that's been a brilliant hire.
And what's the driver there? What's he focused on there?
So
you're one of your biggest clients is down there.
So Oricon, who are now live with Proteus, which is all really very exciting. And so they are based in Australia. They're kind of Asia Pacific, but they're an Australian company, but they've got New Zealand all over, Singapore and Vietnam, that kind of side of thing. But the core of the business is Australian, right? So Dennis worked for them.
Okay.
And this sounds like I'm in a whole world of pain here, because we hired Dennis from our biggest client.
Okay.
But that's not, it was all above board and all very happy, and that was the right thing for us to do, because it also keeps continuity of Dennis's knowledge.
Yeah, and for them, they're going to get a better supply, a better service.
Exactly, right? So what is so we hired Dennis in there, generally if we were a big company, he would be the VP of Asia Pacific.
Okay.
Right? And eventually will be the VP of Asia Pacific.
Yeah.
Right now he's the VP of Chief Cook and Bottle Washer of Asia Pacific, right? and sales looking after
Who could
clients.
speak to people,
He did, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, it was an interesting last quarter for me.
Okay.
Because Dennis joined, and we also had we'd done a partnership with a company called Red to Green.
Okay.
I probably never mentioned this. And part of scaling sales, right, is sales to date.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this last time. It was my black book.
Yeah.
James's black book, my black book, right? And
all your contacts.
Using your mates, right?
Yeah.
And that works to a certain, but that doesn't work in America. That doesn't work in Australia. That doesn't work in scaling, right? So we got approached by a company called Red to Green, and ran by a company called Bronson Fernandez, right? I mean, he sounds like a film star. He also looks like one as well, which is rather annoying. But and he's dead. He's brilliant, this guy, right? And what they bring to the table is a real disciplined sales approach for SaaS.
Okay.
Software as a
and is that what they are? They're a sales company?
Aye. So they offer sales as a service.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't, instead of going and hiring a sales team, you get access to their sales team. And there's more to it than
they get a database and everything else, a CRM and
all the stuff that the process, how do you track all the metrics? You know, we're doing 300-400 cold calls a week now, Kenny.
Yeah.
Right? And
through them.
Through these guys. But how do you make sure that you get the best out of that? So you're tracking every single call, you're measuring it, you're measuring what messaging is good. That, right, we'll take the messaging there, we'll take the messaging there.
Yeah.
They do all that stuff, right? So it's not just a bum in a seat. Right?
You don't just give them a script and then hope for the best.
And it took us, in fact, at that point when we last spoke, we had actually engaged them for probably about 3 months at that point, right? And they were just going through that learning curve of learning what Proteus is and how what the messaging would be. And I was sitting there thinking,
they're never going to get this.
I'm getting that back here, right? Yeah. It's a monthly fee, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, bang, they get it right.
Yeah.
And then our diaries start to fill up with meetings, right? And it was on it. I'd love to say I planned the timing in this, but there's a little bit of luck involved. In fact, a lot of luck involved. So the minute Dennis arrived, our diaries started to fill up, right? But I worked with Dennis through that last quarter, joining the meetings with him. Yeah, I mean, he knew it inside out, just so that we both went. And honestly, so my day was a 4 o'clock in the morning start, and by 8 o'clock I'd had 6 meetings. Yeah, right? I was knackered by the time.
Before you started work.
And it was a crazy end to the year, right? And just from a timing point of view, and of course, and now we're into, and then of course what happens, and there's another lesson for everybody if you're into Australia. Australia shuts down and just before Christmas and doesn't really start again until February. Yeah, right? You lose a month. You lose pretty much January, and so it was a bit slow through January with the next phase, which is, and we're into just closing those deals now. Yeah, right. And you're just moving them through the pipeline, right? Yeah. And so which has been great, right? So and it proved the model, right? It proved that the whole.
How big is Oracle? I don't know the company. So how many people do they have?
About 7,000.
Okay. And is that in oil and gas or mining or?
No, infrastructure.
So
roads, railways, buildings, all that. Defence, they do quite a bit of defence. Okay. I mean, even then, so that, on the back of that, we host Proteus now in Australia, as well as actually we host Proteus in Ireland, which is the main for everybody. And then we now also host it in Australia. And we actually see that as we reach out to other companies that are in the defence space, they want the data to reside in the country. Okay. So they don't want the data to be
somewhere else.
Aye. Yeah. So, but the magic of Amazon is they've got data centers everywhere.
Yeah. Right? So it's easy to do now.
Easy to, and I mean, I'd say I don't know how to do it, right? But we've got 2 instances that talk to each other and it's the same, and I don't know.
Yeah. So how do you see, or what's the plan then for Australia or Asia Pacific?
So if you think version 1 of the company was the old-fashioned way of selling, which is the black book, right? It was kind of scattergun wherever your contacts are. Right now, our strategy is incredibly focused. Right, it's Australia. We've got a team in Australia. They've started. We're building a pipeline there. Dennis, the 2 SDRs that come with Red to Green, Colin and Laura, That's the sales team, right, if you think of that. And I that's supplemented with me joining and a couple of other guys.
And this is supported through the investment round?
Yeah, correct. And so that's, and then we then kicked off in December the same process in Europe, right, or UK, right? So if you think of, it's like, here's where we want to get to over here, which is 4 regions, but 4 regions really is Australia. It's not Asia Pacific, just Australia.
Yeah.
Europe will be UK.
Yeah.
US will probably even be more narrow than that, a city.
Yeah.
Right?
Boston or something.
Probably. Right? And then, you'd like to think it might be Boston starting around about June time. Because I've got tickets.
June the 13th.
Round about then. I actually got tickets for both the Morocco and the Haiti game on the ballot. I think I'm the only person I've heard of. I got 4 for each game in the ballot.
Oh, brilliant.
So there you go. So it probably will be Boston.
Yeah. At least for a month.
At least
2 weeks to Houston before you move to Miami.
Well, I've got tickets for the Brazil game as well. That would be far wrong, mate. So we've kicked off in Europe. So we've Red to Green have hired in one of the SDRs, and she's based in Ireland. So we've now got a girl in Ireland who's we've been doing the messaging. We actually put one of our staff in, so we've now decided to rotate we've got 3 youngsters working for us, right? You met Jack, Callum, and another guy we've hired. 4 youngsters. Kirsty, Max is his name. We hired him because he speaks Arabic.
Okay.
So a young lad who lives in the Middle East, because we weren't going to strategically go after the Middle East,
okay?
Because it's a hard sell in the Middle East, right? I think we've said that before, and but met Max, speaks Arabic, and it's actually worked a treat. He started building a pipeline for us in the Middle East, which we never thought we would have, right?
Yeah.
And anyway, so what I've said, we've decided to rotate them through 3 months with Red to Green, so they learn this really hard cold calling, that side of things. 3 months with customer success, 3 months in projects, and then work out where's the best place for them.
And does Red to Green provide the contacts?
They do. They do, and we also kind of chip in with that as well, because we've kind of been in the mix, so it's a bit of both going on there. So UK's now, we're just starting to generate those meetings now. So I'm coming out of Australia. I will move into looking after the
UK side.
I'll now have late afternoons now, evenings now, as opposed to the really early mornings I was having, with the aim that we'll then hire somebody into this region.
Yeah.
The same as Dennis, that will cover here.
Yeah.
Then I'll move on to the US.
Yeah. And do the same
there again, and then we'll eventually hire in the US. And that's the kind of strategy for this year, right?
Okay. So by the end of this year, do you think you'll have a person in each of the locations?
No, we will have, and we'll be building pipelines and sales pipelines in all 3. Well, and now 4 actually, because the Middle East, we hadn't, but Middle East I will.
And will Red to Green cover all the areas?
Yeah. So the deal we've done with them is for all 3, for the 3 regions, not the Middle East, right? Yeah. So the Asia Pacific, Europe, and UK and US.
And how do you value what they do as far as your return?
Well, I guess.
Are you happy with it at this point?
Yeah. But ultimately, the measure will be on how many licenses we sell. But the real key for me now, Kenny, right, is I've always been relationship-based selling.
Yeah.
And that doesn't go away, by the way, right?
No,
that's still
always
there.
It's always there, yeah.
But there is also
even if you're no selling, you're still selling.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we still will keep that part. In fact, we call that ABSM. Account-based sales and marketing. Whereas that's a fancy name for relationship.
Very professional,
It's very proud. Took me years. ChatGPT, tell me what this should be. Right? And so we actually have a sales channel for that, and that's mostly the larger companies that go into that pot, right?
Okay.
Because and the outbound, as we call it, which is the Red to Green, and Dennis, myself, and that we call that outbound, and that we tend to focus on the sort of SME market there.
Yeah.
And the deal there is you can get to the decision makers reasonably quickly. So you either know if you're in or out quickly, right? So you don't waste a lot of time, going around the houses and all that kind of stuff, right? And that, but I've realised it's a bit of a numbers game. right? It's you make X 100 cold calls, get you X meetings, which will get you X demos, which will get you X proposals, which will get you X clients. Yeah, it's the and we're just kind of working out exactly what those numbers are now, what those percentages are, and once you perfect it, which we're getting good numbers just now, you can then, that's how you scale.
Yeah,
right.
It becomes easier.
Because we know that it took us that amount of time to get to there.
Here,
So we can put that into that region now, or I can put that into that city or that, whatever that is, Rex. And that's the.
So you've spent 6 years on this now, 7 years?
No, 7 years.
Yeah. So if you took all 7 years ago to now opening in 3 or 4 different locations globally, if you were a company starting a tech business or a SaaS model business, what would be your advice?
Wow. Don't.
Get a job.
Get me a job. No, I mean, obviously, I tell you what, it's tough, Kenny, right? And I mean, there is a bit of that, right? All credit to James. We've been well funded through this process. We wouldn't have got there without funds.
Yeah.
Right? That's a big thing, right?
So do you think you need a contact book to start with?
Aye, I definitely think your first. I think that's it. The model of business you're in. Your first sales are to your mates or your not mates, but somebody who you've worked with in the past.
Or you can get horticulture
something like that.
Yeah,
I think that's always going to be the case. I mean, I'm sure there's outliers, but that's generally the case. I look at it. I often what would I have done differently now?
Yeah.
And when I look at that, what advice would I give people? And I think the one thing, the biggest mistake, absolutely the biggest mistake made in Exavian, because we put too much into the product.
Okay.
At the start, keep your idea and your product as lean as possible.
Yeah.
One idea, sell one idea,
build on it.
The problem with Proteus was it was selling 25 ideas
Yeah.
at the same time, right? And what I've realized now in the selling process, if somebody doesn't like one of those 25, then it can really stop you.
Yeah, it prevents them moving forward. They get stuck on that one.
Yeah. And and in fact, I'll never forget, there was a guy I played football with in Dubai, Shirag his name was. And I didn't know him very well. I just played football with the guy, right? And we're chatting one day. I told him what I was doing, setting up, and he took me aside and he kind of said, "I've been through this cycle a couple of times," and he gave me his advice to me then was, "You need to." And I told him what Proteus was going to be. He says, "It's too much in it." Yeah. I told you too much in it. You need to narrow it down. And of course, I was Billy Big Baller trained. I know better than every have. Nonsense. Honestly, he was so tough, right? And I regretted that year 5. But I'm thinking,
so
what have I done?
Yeah.
And I remember sitting replaying that moment with him thinking, I should listen to it. So if anybody else listening to this, you've got this idea of this great big system, focus on one part of it initially, get it out there, get it to market, get it sold, get some revenue, and then expand from there. And that's the bit we struggle with.
Yeah.
I mean, we actually had 3 products. It wasn't just Proteus in day one. Yeah. It was Proteus, the marketplace, and the gateway. The gateway was for managing software. The marketplace was for managing people.
Yeah, I remember the
and actually, the whole thing was a great idea.
Yeah.
And
just too difficult to sell.
For a startup, it was mad, right? When I look back, it was utter madness, right?
So some of the stuff you've taken away, do you think that's maybe something that might come back at some point? Or are you happy with what you've got and that'll work and that'll sell?
Yeah, I think again, so Proteus will sell now. Well, Proteus will be a successful business, right?
Yeah.
And
it's up and running now.
Well adopted,
globally adapted.
And we will continue to evolve that product.
Yeah.
Polish it, evolve it. And you can't avoid AI and all that stuff, right? And it will become a better product. It depends on where we get to in the cycle or who buys, the company at the end of the day, right? Where that ends up. But the gateway thing, how we manage software, I don't think that will ever happen because it would you would need the bank, and that's for managing the engineering software. So so a lot of engineering jobs, you need really complex software for modeling purposes, right? Subsurface modeling, pipeline modeling, all that kind of stuff. And the companies that own that software, they would never allow you to rent it by the hour. I was trying to create a system where you would rent the software by the hour instead of buying it. Yeah. Because it's
too expensive.
You pay $500,000 for a license to this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So for most companies, it's just not affordable, right? So I was actually trying to go back to the 1970s where you could think of it as sitting in the cloud, but it's actually sitting in a big mainframe, and you went and punch carded and you booked an hour in the mainframe.
Is that like buy one license and then subsell it?
Well, the whole concept was right, I know that, but you would need these guys to be on board, and I don't think I don't think I've got the skills to get them on board. Somebody might have, right? But the other side of it, the people side, the manpower side of things, we call it the marketplace. 100% that exists, and because you see where we are in the world now of oil and gas and renewables, right? The margins are wafer thin, right? So people can't have the traditional model of Exodus or Genesis or Kent or any of these consultancies that are sitting,
or these engineers sitting there.
They would have done their numbers on 70% utilization, right? 70, maybe 75, right? Which means that people have got downtime. That might be proposal writing or thinking time or whatever it was. These companies are having to run at 90, 95% utilization now
to cover their costs.
To make a ton of profit, right? So you can have somebody on the bench. Right? If somebody sat on the bench for any length of time, you wipe out everything. Right? And that was the whole world of the marketplace, where you had, you instead of having 500 staff, you would have 100 staff managing the whole piece. And then just renting people by the hour or the day or whatever it is who sat. So you're creating a bunch of, it was the model that exists for building websites now. Fiber and
all of that. Same idea.
It was exactly the same as that in the engineering world. And I think it's even more relevant now than it was 7 years ago when we set up.
There's a difficulty there of coming from a recruitment background as well. If you have guys within oil and gas, you've seen, like, I've had a guy ready to go to work in the morning and then he's not turned up because he's fucking flew to Egypt because he got £100 more a day or something. So how would you control that? Because as soon as you start to let a client down because the guy hasn't shown up, that could be that client lost. They're going to go to another recruitment company, or they're going to just employ somebody.
And so I don't think we ever imagined this as a recruitment.
Because they need the job done at the end of the day. Probably if they're working that way, they need it done quick.
So in that space, that to me is class recruitment. I was thinking of this more in the world of the consumer world, right, where you're not punting a body offshore or onshore or wherever else, whatever. You needed a specific skill, right? You've got a project. You need a flow assurance engineer for 3 days, 2 weeks, whatever. Typically, back at Exodus, you would have that person as a staff member, just sitting running at 60% utilization. So you're probably washing your face in that person at best. Whereas in this world, you would just hire them for that 2 week period because there's an army of them sat out there. So you know where, and that's why I'd imagined this was, right. It wasn't a world where you would be passing somebody through you onto another. You know, so in that, if I imagine that now, and if you, I'll use Exodus as an example because it's Exodus wouldn't exist there because the client would be here. Let's say the client would be BP, would come to Exodus to get that person. Exodus go to the marketplace. You would imagine BP would just go straight to the marketplace and get that person. And if they didn't turn, that's BP's problem. That's the way I would kind of imagine. That's how I envisioned it. And I envisioned it as being self managing as in competency. You know, where companies companies rate the person,
like an FPAL type thing,
like the whole kind of thing going on. And does the company pay the bill on time? Therefore, so it's a reverse grading system,
like an Uber rating.
Exactly the same, right? And Airbnb, all the things that have changed
using
now,
that,
basically. And I genuinely believe it's still an idea, right? And will it happen in my tenure of this company? Probably not, because. But I could see somebody doing it, and I could see somebody doing it and bolting it in. So.
And what does your tenure look like? Do you have a plan in your head?
Yeah, we do. As a company, we need to scale. We need to get to the right numbers. I won't mention the numbers. I think that's from our shareholders. But the 2 years will take us to get to these numbers. It will take us 2 years to get to the right number, right? And then that's the point of where you go from there. You can imagine we get.
That'll take you what, 9 years, almost 10 years.
Listen, I have half right, and
Did you think this was 10 years? This project?
I thought it was 5, 100%. Right. And then you get. I guess I've actually read quite a few books recently, and I never normally read business books, but I've read a few recently, just maybe. And I think there's like all things in life, there's outliers, but I don't think there's many people that can build and scale a business in 5 years to
a global business.
I think you're really struggling, right? And I'm sure there's one or two people out there that
achieve that.
So that, right? When I look back at X, for me, and X in start to end is 10 years, and I think this is going to be that, so 10 years, and it's going to be that kind of spell. And of course, it's different time for me, it's different time round, kind of different age. I'm definitely going to have another play in me.
Yeah, this is it.
No, in the world of James Bond, never say never, right? I don't have another 10-year cycle in me, right?
So maybe get involved in something that already exists.
And I think that's or stay on with the next part of this journey, right? But have a different, I think we said the last time the Exodus didn't last a huge amount of time after it was sold, right? So I was quite keen to get out, to be honest, and I look back. I think this is different, right? Because it's been a challenge, right? But there are certain parts of this business that I'm much more mature now to step back from running this business. Yeah, if you know what I mean, right? Whereas I never really wanted to do that in Exodus.
That was your baby, your first baby, yeah.
Whereas I can actually see probably in the next year or so, actually stepping back in this business and bringing in somebody younger to run this business and take it to the end point, right? And me
being
more of a supporting role in this business, right? And I think that's the part where I think maybe that's just age, I actually love selling. I love the sales process, right? I mean, I know it can be pretty tough because when you're doing high volumes of cold calls and stuff like that, and high volumes of meets and stuff, and you're getting knockback after knockback, it's a bit like being a teenager again, going to the dance. Oh, no, another one. And then all of a sudden, you crack it, right? And I still get that kind of buzz when you get a new client and that side. But what I generally really love, right? And I don't get involved as much now, and that's partly because the software is a little bit more mature. I love working with the product, right? I love the design process, right? I love
with the client.
Generally, it's not with the client. Sometimes we get
just within internally,
right? Yeah. And we've just added CRM functionality to Proteus, and that's sounds incredibly technical, and I won't get into the detail. What we worked out, right, was we sell to engineering companies, engineering consultancies. We sell to lots of different styles of companies, but that's the core, right?
Yeah.
And they've all gone and bought CRM tools, Salesforce or HubSpot, and they all tell me the same thing. Well, we bought this system and we're using about 3% of the functionality of Colin, right? We're using it just to hold. It's a database of names, right?
Phone numbers, email addresses,
and exactly. And now the functionality in these systems is off the scale, right? And it kind of hit me in a way because we use a CRM tool. We use HubSpot, right?
Yeah.
But we use it. You can imagine we're doing everything we do is outbound.
Yeah.
Everything we do is outbound. We get the odd inbound, i.e. people coming to us with a bid, with an out. Whereas everybody we sell to is the opposite of us. They all deal with bid lists, RFQs, invitation to tenders.
Yeah.
So we went away and designed our CRM part, because we kind of had half the functionality anyway, because we needed it to make it work, right? So we and see that process of designing what would be fit for purpose for our client base. What would get them excited? And that.
So is the CRM system part of it, or is CRM system a different project?
No, it's part of Proteus and integrated with Proteus, right? And
so you get that if you take Proteus, you've got a CRM system as well.
Yeah, and you can. And it could probably get a bit too technical or detail, but it'll be about 50-50 for us. Half our clients will use their existing ones. We have to integrate, so we just switch ours off at that point, or the ones that can use our one, and that's the kind of. So we've got to think about that.
Yeah,
right. We've got a CRM tool, but it might not be using it because it might be switched off because they've already got
their own thing.
A lot of big clients have spent $1 million on a
lot
CRM tool. They'll never take them out, right? Yeah. And they've invested heavily on it, so we've got to be the integration piece for that, and that works well. Yeah, that works really well. So.
And see when you take in £2.5 million and you've taken in money at Exodus as well, does that add a stress onto you?
Mm-hmm. you got to deliver this.
So when you're 5 years in, you've taken investment early on. 5 years in, you're thinking, what the fuck have I done? What is that? Is that just you personally, or are you thinking, fucking hell, I brought all these people in this with me, and they were,
the
how big a burden is that for you?
and I don't think it. I mean, there are certain things that give me sleepless nights, right?
Yeah.
And but that doesn't give me sleepless nights. But you do have to. I've got an investor meeting tomorrow where in Edinburgh, maybe a couple of people turn up, but most of it will be online, right? And you've gone through just making sure everybody's on the journey with you, right? Making sure this is what we're doing, this is how we're spending your money, this is what the next 6 months looks like, So you've got to do that. And there are moments when you look back, when you think, well, because I've definitely had some dark moments on this journey of this company where I thought, are we going to make this?
Yeah.
Right? It really is hairy, scary stuff, right? Which is different than Exodus, because you're chasing cash in Exodus.
Yeah.
You're chasing revenue in this business, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a difference. It's a recurring revenue. So finding revenue in Exodus is much easier.
But once it's been in and it's gone, the project's done. This is also
it's a different stretch, right? And I mean, because I look back, when you're raising cash in this space, right, and your first round is generally called your friends and family round, right, which is you're going to your mates, your pals, your family. I need 20 grand or whatever the number is, right? I was nervous going to my pals because I'm thinking, how's this? Because you don't know really a tech business. Now I'm spectacularly glass half full person, right? No matter what, I'm glass half full, glass brimming over for me. But so I remember it was probably the third round of investment before I asked some of my mates, look guys, I think we're onto something here, right? I think if you
needed that bit of confidence burst.
Yeah, because you don't really know. And really in that first round, people are backing you as opposed to the product, because nobody really knows what the product is going to be, right? And but yeah, so and then when you get to this kind of stage now, it's much more measurable now. You can see where I describe it
Easier to sell now as well, as far as bringing investment.
I think so, and I think we myself and James get, I don't know what the numbers will be, half a dozen emails each a week from private equity companies or cold calls from private equity companies, because they're, when you've got a recurring revenue stream and you become a very predictable business as we are becoming, you become a private equity company's dream,
a target,
or you become a dream for them, right? And so, so that, so getting a return on investment now is not as much of a challenge as it was 2-3 years ago. We are in this guy's.
As you try to get it to move.
So, but obviously it's nice.
What about bad money? Is there any investors that you didn't want to deal with?
Oh.
Or you turned away?
No, I see. I'm not the best. James is probably the best. You should probably do one of these with James, actually, to be honest.
I spoke to Amy as well about doing one with James.
Oh, good. Because he's got a full perspective too, right? And he's been at the coalface of the financial thing, right? I mean, I get involved in, sometimes got to do demos and sometimes got to tell a story of it. And so I do get involved with James face of that whole journey. So so I don't think we've had any NMD that we've not. I don't think so. I say we don't have any. The only institute in which you could call it, we've got a couple of family offices, which is closest you're getting to institution, right?
Yeah.
And we've got Scottish Enterprise who back us as well. So they're, I forget the fund is. They've got a fund that they back. And they've got a bit more. What's the word? A bit more structure around it than individuals.
Yeah.
Right?
They need to report back as well.
Yeah.
So, and what about private equity? So you're taking the private equity at Exodus. Mm-hmm. Your phone's ringing now if your private equity company's new. So what's your thoughts on this? When I met you in Abu Dhabi, you were less than positive.
Well, I think I reflect on that, Kenny. Well, I probably had about 10 pints that night as well.
Yeah. You were like, let me back on that podcast. I'll tell you about private equity companies.
It was a good night. Yeah. That was good. That was good fun. Well, like, I think if I'll flip this, right? If I was a private equity company investing in Exodus or investing in that type of business, which is a lumpy business, could be quite hairy as well.
Yeah.
Right. You know, you could have 3 great months in a row and then have one bad month that wipes out three great months in a row, right? Just because of whatever outside. So that, I think, private equity would be much more suited to a company like Exergy Proteus, right?
Yeah.
Because it's it's repeatable business and it's a scalable business. Yeah. It's you know, once you've proven that scalable business, I can see why we get inundated by that world, right? Because there's a metric that says if we put 10 million quid in this business, that will turn into X, 10 times X, you can see that, or whatever that number is, right? And I think when you've got that repeatable business, it's a much more, it's a much easier, you know, journey for a private equity company to go on, and it would be a much easier journey for executives to go along with that. What is that? You know, I think you mature as well, Kenny, right? I can't imagine I imagine I was an absolute prick to half the guys that, you know, from back in the Exodus days, because it was kind of, but no, in some moments I'm not very proud of, you know, the way I was, and when I look back, but that petulant behaviour and stuff like that, when you don't get your own way and all that kind of stuff. And
what was that? Just that's learning though.
Yeah,
as you go through.
And I think, and you sit and reflect on this, and I can still be like that, right? And I think that's built into your nature. But being able to sit back a little bit and think about, you know, and in fact, I mean, this journey has been an incredible journey for me, right? And on a learning curve, right?
Yeah.
Of we brought this guy in, Nigel, right? James brought in this guy, Nigel, a friend of his, right? And I don't know what years, maybe year 2, 3, maybe. And Nigel wanted to put this sales process into the company.
Okay.
And we kind of half did, right? And in fact, he wrote this playbook of sales, and it was about 400 pages long, right? And I'm reading this, and I'm thinking, what is this? A load of bollocks, right? Yeah. And because I was firmly in the camp of relationship-based sales, right? And firmly in the space, right? And of course, and of course, when you plug away, and you kind of get to the right place, right? Now we're in the scaling mode. I'll give you a laugh, right? We get all this going, and I don't know how somebody pointed it to me. Anyway, I discover this document that Nigel had written
within his 400 pages,
and pretty much what he wrote 4 or 5 years ago is what we've done now. Okay. I've just had to invent it myself, yeah. Right? Instead of listening to somebody. So I called him up, right? This is Nigel, you're in for a laugh here. He's a lovely guy, it's on a board. He came in as an exec, and now he's just non-exec, right? Good non-exec. And I called him up. This is probably 4 or 5 months ago, so you're going to have a laugh, you're right.
Yes.
See that playbook you're on? You probably don't even remember, right? This is pretty much, we are
following that
now, yeah, to the letter of the law, right? That thing that I told you was a load of rubbish back in the day.
It's now my Bible.
It's my Bible. And so I think there's, you know, right? That probably sums up the whole thing. At the same time, I also, Nigel, if he was here, would admit that we were way too early to have that full playbook and play at that.
We weren't ready for it.
We just weren't ready for it, right, as a company. And whereas we are, I met a guy in London. Tuesday this week? Yeah, I met a guy for lunch on Tuesday who's potentially somebody we might bring into the business, right? Who's all he's ever done is in the SaaS sales world.
Okay.
And,
yeah.
You know, in the language, we're sat having lunch. 2 years ago, I couldn't have had a conversation with this guy. Now we were having this. We were
back and forth.
Well, you know, I would have thought he was talking Chinese because he was just playing back this playbook, right?
Yeah.
And this is how you do it. These are the stages, and this is what we've done. We haven't done it all, right? We're in.
But you've lived and breathed part of that now, so you can understand them for it.
Yeah, and that's the. So that's the. Anyway, that's the.
You mentioned at certain points this has been quite dark stages of this.
Aye.
We had a few people that have talked about that, but not too many people. So what exactly is a dark stage? How tough was it because people think, oh, running a SaaS business, living in Dubai. What's the reality at the toughest point?
Yeah, the toughest point is you think you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's lonely at that point. Very lonely.
Yeah.
For me, it's lonely, right? Because
you're quite a bouncy person.
I'm incredibly fast.
Yeah.
So that, and I mean, you probably go back 3 years ago now, 4 years in. I think that was that world of, and I really just think, how are we going to get there? Right?
Yeah.
I just couldn't see where we could get we'd sold a few small companies, but
just wasn't getting there.
Just not getting there. And the product was getting good as well, right? And it still wasn't great.
Yeah.
You know, when I look at what it is now, it was a good product, but it really is a spanking product now. And I mean, I really did have a bit of a tough time at that point. That was what, end of 22, I think I was beginning of 23.
And is that like depression or?
No, I'd never get to that point.
Yeah.
I think that's a world of, it's a world I don't fully understand.
So what was it for you then? What was the lowest point for you? Okay, the product might not make it, but what was your mindset then at that point?
Failure, right? Go to the shareholders, failure.
Letting people down?
Letting people down, right? You let your, then you're thinking, where do you go with this, right?
Yeah.
Where do you take it? And I say, so part of my nature there is just to, and maybe that's the same for other people who get to these dark places, who become successful in whatever right they are, and is, no matter how dark it is, you just battle on.
You just need to be more driven.
You just have to be more driven to get it, right? And you just double down and you get
perseverance,
work your, and I'm, you know, and I think I look back, maybe in ecstasy, how would I manifest? Maybe drank too much.
Okay.
Right. I think that's, you know, I don't mean saying that. But that was also a culture in ecstasy as well, right? And this time,
one you helped create.
On that I did create, not help create.
It was mandatory.
It's very true. And this has been different. I mean, I've not, I think different, being older this time round, don't think nearly as much. Not that you would know that from Adipec, but that was one of the outliers of the time. And definitely don't have that culture in the company this time. But again, that's driven by being a bit on disparate.
Yeah. What about personally at that point then, away from the work, when the work is no going the way you wanted it to go, how were you as a person? Were you still the same person to everybody else, or were you anxious, frustrated?
Oh gosh, I think certain people I would be anxious with, or I'd be grumpy with.
Yeah.
Right, grumpy with. I probably fell out with James more than I should have done.
Yeah. And did he know then?
I think so. Maybe not the detail I've got.
Yeah.
I would have. No, I don't think he would have felt it the same way I was feeling it.
Yeah.
Right. Because I was properly at the coalface.
You were right in it. Yeah.
And I think that that's an interesting question, Kenny, right? Because I think back in the time, you know, I don't think many of the staff would have done it anyway, because I had to keep a brave face in the company.
Keep it going.
I mean, this has been a different journey to Exodus, right? I think I probably touched now. Exodus was a lot of people around you very quickly. This is not. I've not had a lot of people around me.
Yeah, you're driving this,
right?
Yeah.
And you're kind of on your own in the sales. You're on your own in the customer relationships. You're in that side. On the development side, Andrew runs that part, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know anything about development, but the product is my product. I've got to be involved with the product, and so I found this journey. I found it a lonely journey, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in Exodus, that was
you're surrounded by people.
Steve Hamill, there was Alistair Porter, there was a bunch of mates who set up Exodus, really, and we all partied. Well, we all went to each other. We all had young kids, so you know, around each other's house at the weekends and all that stuff. So you were. Exodus was just
very familiar.
It was an extension of life, to be honest. And whereas this has been a job, this has been a completely separate journey. And that's I would, and because I'm thinking back to some of the moments, you know, the grumpier moments I had of falling out with various people. and because you know I think somebody told me this once before, I like to be liked.
Yeah.
Right? And I do.
Yeah.
But then somebody told me this in Exodus once, and I think it's the same in Exodus. Everybody was shit scared of me. And I thought everybody was my pal.
Yeah.
Right? And I couldn't work this out. I just thought I was everybody's mate, right? And it really hit me hard, right? And I think this time round, because what happens is I can get really short with people when I'm grumpy, right? But then I'm dead apologetic afterwards.
Yeah.
And I genuinely
try to make up for it.
I try to make up for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a trait, right?
Yeah.
I think that's if you go and read these psychoanalysis of entrepreneurs or that, I think that's a dead normal trait of hot-headed,
lose a plot,
and then try to make up everybody afterwards, and because you've just calmed down, and I'm definitely like that. Yeah. I don't think I'm just quite as bad as I was back in Exodus days,
because there's less people around you now.
Less people, probably and I don't have as many touch points as it's an interesting journey. This, I mean, there's a few. We've only 42 staff just now, right?
Yeah.
And half of them I don't even know.
Yeah.
See, at 42, I knew everybody's wives, kids.
Yeah.
At 142, I knew everything about everybody.
Yeah.
I've got staff I've probably never met. In fact, I've definitely never met in this company. That's true.
So it's the type of business that it is. So you got people working for houses and whatever else. It's a different world.
That's part of it. We had to. The last time we was back, actually, I think it was back in the last year. It was again pissing with rain, and I went to Broughty Ferry. Because a lot of our developers our core of them are around about Broughty Ferry.
Okay.
Right, and so we've got a wee office in Broughty Ferry, and we went for a night out. I actually had a brilliant night, right? And I met a bunch of people I hadn't met before, right? And the developer side of things, and what an interesting night. Went to a vinyl night in a wee crappy pub in Broughty Ferry. You took your own vinyl along. I had to go into HMV and buy some. Buy some. Talking heads, by the way. And take it along. And then there's some of these interesting guys who were just turn up from all over that region, go into the pub on a Tuesday night and play the vinyl in the pub. Yeah. A great night.
And another one away for that and away for Exergy Proteus.
Aye.
But we see a lot of companies here. Obviously, Aberdeen is having a tough time.
Aye.
A lot of companies internationalising, and we see a lot of people obviously looking at the Middle East.
Yep.
What's the challenges or the ways to market for companies here?
Gosh, that's an interesting question, right? You've no idea how much my inbox or people talk to me. How do I get to Middle East, Colin?
Asking for intros or
asking for intros, right?
Yeah.
It's a tough market.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a bunch of guys out there.
And you're in it, and it's not even your top market. You're looking at three other markets.
And you're right. And in fact, my initial strategy was not to sell into the Middle East, not to sell strategically into the Middle East.
Yeah. If it comes, it comes. Yeah.
Aye. And whereas now we've decided to change that because the product will sell well into.
Yeah.
And we've actually made a bit of inroads, particularly the last 2 or 3 weeks, right? But it's a tough market. It's a tough market because not only the UK, everybody wants
all
to be
over the world. Yeah.
Everybody wants to be in the Middle East, right? And of course, everybody wants to be in Dubai because it's a soft landing from a lifestyle point of view.
Lots of expats,
lovely climate, all that kind of stuff. So getting into that market now, I'm out of the oil and gas industry now, right? And other than my knowledge of it is speaking to mates on a golf course or going for a pint and that kind of stuff, right? And but most of the guys I know have been there for the long haul. Yeah. Right? They came there 10, 15, 20 years ago, and they bided their time, and eventually they got into it, and they've now got contracts, and they're doing well in that space now. Do not go into this thinking it's a pot of gold with a crock of money at the end of the rainbow kind of thing. It's a tough, and I don't know what the stats will be. It depends on your business and depends how, but
you're completing a global supply chain, not just a regional supply chain. Yeah.
And again, there's space for it. There's always space for it if you're niche, if you've got something that is unique. Yeah. Right. If download tool, whatever it is, then I was saying they've got a chance, right? Yeah. Because there's always a drive for technology. There's also a drive to improve. If you're in the engineering space, it's a race to the ball.
Yeah.
It's an absolute race to the ball, and driven. This is true, right? I used to. And again, let's go back to Exodus, right? And I'm talking to not the software people now. Most of the people in Aberdeen who probably want to go to the Middle East, right? Yeah. Is that our client base in Exodus was Shell, BP, usual suspects, right? And then the talismans of this world. And if you didn't get paid, out on your 30 days, it was because there was generally a mistake in the invoice or something like that. Everybody paid you on time. Right?
Yeah.
And I actually remember a guy in Talisman saying to me once, they needed us as much as we needed them, right? So they looked after us. They wanted to make sure our bills were paid because everybody was growing at the time.
Yeah. And
then I got to the Middle East and then I realised that it's the client's job to put you out of business.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit. They genuinely don't give a shit because there's another 5 companies behind you that are going to fill your boots so they want to get you to the lowest price that you possibly will live with and then take more off of you because they don't care and then they won't pay your bill, right? They won't pay your bill for 90 days, then they won't pay for another 90 days. And I mean, it's a brutal environment. It's an incredibly tough environment to exist.
Put you out of business, never mind build your business.
And of course there's no real, nobody cares anymore. Nobody cares in that space and that. And again, like all things, there's always outliers, right? And plus, the Middle East market is, and probably because of that, is dominated by the big boys.
Yeah.
Right? Because they you need some decent balance sheet, you need to go into that market. You can't be living month to month to go into that market. So, yeah, it's go in with your eyes open and do some proper research.
And what about the Australian market then? You spent a couple of years working on that. Do you think is that an alternative market for companies for Aberdeen?
I think so. I
mean, we already have quite a supply chain to here already working there.
Look, I've always worked in business in Australia, right back to Genesis days. I worked there, we had an office there. Then 3X was our first branch office was not London, it was actually Perth. You go up and down terrace, you think you on Union Street sometimes, excuse me, so I love going down there, right? I love, I've got loads of mates down there.
Yeah.
I love the fact that every business is a 9 iron away from the next business, on St George Terrace or just behind Murray Street, Hill Street. And so you can get 5 meetings a day without jumping in a taxi and, and all that kind of stuff. And people are fair. People want to listen to you. People want to give you a chance. So I've always liked that.
And from an engineering side, is it a race to the bottom there?
I think it's a tough market.
Was it a race to the bottom everywhere now?
I think oil and gas, and if you're talking oil and gas, I really think it's a incredibly tough world to be in.
Yeah.
I mean, Australia's still got lots of big projects, mostly gas. They've got loads of big gas projects and that sort of things. And I think there's still stuff happening there. And
a bit of decon work.
Shit, yeah, well, yeah. Never really. That came after my world. I don't really know much about the decon world other than I just can't imagine it's the most exciting project in the world. There's definitely an end point to that project, isn't there? But look, I guess it's keeping bills paid for people.
Yeah. Last time you were here, we kind of finished with asking you what your drink of choice was.
I got loads of feedback on that, by the way.
Yeah. But this time we'll ask you if you were to have a drink with somebody, who would it be?
Oh, well, I've already done that with Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah.
I got the moment I had lunch with him a few years back, and it was the greatest day. But the guy I would love to have a drink with, who I've never had a drink with, is Billy Connolly. And I'm sure I'm not the only Scottish person to say that.
Yeah.
I idolised, and I still to this day, I could repeat various sketches he's done verbatim, right?
What's the best one? Best one I think is the Lions.
Oh, the wildebeest.
The wildebeest.
Which is unbelievable, right? Well, but I'm not, in fact, my favourite moment, and I still think it's the best ever TV ever produced, was an audience with Billy Connolly, which was done in the mid-80s.
Is that one at the Pavilion in Glasgow?
No, it was on ITV. ITV used to have this series. Yes, right. Where they got famous people up and it was the audience. Celebrity audience, right? Yeah. Bob Monkhouse did one, and Damien Everidge did one, and then the Billy Connolly one is, if you've never seen it, Kenny, it's the funniest hour you will ever have in your life. In fact, I really laugh. I came back from the train yesterday from London, and I was the Wi-Fi was crap, usual nonsense in a train, right? And I don't have much downloaded, but fair enough,
that was on your phone.
It was on and I watched it yesterday again, and I was actually sat on this train, passing myself laughing, right? And the guys sitting next to me just wondering, what is he watching?
Yeah, what's wrong with him?
Yeah, but I think to have lived in the time when Billy Connolly, which I think, and I'm sure I'm not, and I'm sure other people other than Scottish people say he's probably the greatest comedian of all time, right? And I would love to spend I know he doesn't drink alcohol, but I'd love to sit him a cup of tea with him.
Yeah. Brilliant. Colin, thank you very much again.
Great. Cheers.
Brilliant.